So my name is James. Today we're going to be talking about the Battle of Little Bighorn, or as the Lakota people called it, the Battle of the Greasy Grass, which was fought in Montana, June 25th, 1876. This here would be a refresher for students. They would have already discussed the Trail of Tears, and I would put this in here more for just students who didn't keep up or remember as much. They can have that information again. In the 1830s, there was close to 125,000 Native Americans living in the South, but as white settlers wanted to expand out more, when they realized they couldn't Americanize the Native people here, they decided that it was time to move them, and which led to Andrew Jackson signing the Indian Removal Act. Pictured here is the Trail of Tears. Here's a map as well as an image of people traveling on the trail. Typically, I would include a lot more information than this, but of course, it is refresher, so I did not include as much. Little Bighorn was a region in Montana that had several Native American groups present on a reservation, but the discovery of gold sparked new interest, and the U.S. sent in Army soldiers to investigate this discovery. Um, the people here, Dakota, Lakota, and Cheyenne Indians, believed that this was a breach of the treaty that they had, and Crazy Horse and Sitting Bull in particular began to rebel against the Army. Pictured here is Sitting Bull, but unfortunately there is no picture of Crazy Horse. This was a picture labeled Crazy Horse that I had found. Um, in their resistances, Colonel George Custer was sent in with 700 cavalrymen to kind of keep control and investigate the discovery of gold, find maybe a place to settle. Build a fort. Um, Here they found a place where a lot of people lived along a river. There was close to 1,500 to 2,000 Native Americans that were ready to fight when Custer showed up. His men had warned him that they were severely outnumbered and that maybe it was not a good idea to fight, but he believed that the odds were in their favor and chose to fight anyways. Now, this was a huge loss for the United States Army, more than 250 killed, whereas less than 40 natives were killed. And of course, this sparked huge outrage amongst the settlers who believed that it was just a savage attack. But the Cheyenne and Sioux people saw this as a major victory for them and celebrated accordingly. But unfortunately, not long after, settlers began calling for blood. Dakota, Lakota, and Cheyenne people celebrated their victory, which was their largest that they had against U.S. forces so far. But the Army was quick to regroup. They enlisted more men to continue fighting the Native Americans. Custer is often criticized for his performance in the battle, but was at the time viewed as a hero. Uh, while the Cheyenne and the Sioux did celebrate, this did hurt their chances in later deals, including the Black Hills Blunder. Um, Here's where I would give students a series of sources. Now I included one source from 1980 and then two somewhat contemporary sources from Crow people, as well as original newspaper sources from 1876 that discuss the events, and a video from a few years ago that was published on the History Channel. Um, Now, each of these kind of take a different stance. For example, the Crow sources talk about how the Sioux were their enemies and often raided their villages, and how they were happy when they discovered that the U.S. Army had come in and wiped out most of their people, as well as these newspaper articles who had discussed the murderous fire from all directions that the natives had poured down upon Custer and his men. Um, these different sources were kind of placed in here so that students can understand that the opinion of these events is very diverse, even at the time. There's not everybody thought that this was, a huge tragedy one way or the other. So I would hope that students would be able to look at this and be able to look at the language present in a lot of these sources to determine the biases that might be present in what they're looking at. This is information about the lesson and standards itself, but I'm unfortunately out of time.